Okay, today's topic is pitching to podcasts. So I love podcasts and they are such a useful tool to be able to get your message seen by more people in a very easy way. Okay, so why podcasts are especially beneficial for your business. And if you're working with me in the publishing company as you become a best-selling author, are three main reasons. So podcasts are really mutually beneficial for you as the speaker and also for the person hosting the podcast. Now, most of us use social media to promote our programs, showcase our content, position ourselves as an expert, get more visible. But the issue with this is that what we are posting is mostly seen by our own existing audience. And this, of course, you're running Facebook ads and posting in Facebook groups and things like that. But when you do a podcast, your message is then shared with the audience of the podcast host, and obviously also on platforms like Apple Podcasts and Podcast Player and Listener and all those other things. So people browsing can find your podcast episode, and it's not something that you usually have to pay for. And if you do it right, the podcasts that you pitch to and that you speak on will be listeners that contain your ideal client. So we want a win-win situation where you can leverage both of your networks, your network and that of the host. Okay, so it's pointless using our most valuable asset, which is time, to go and pitch to podcasts where we know our ideal client is not hanging out, right? So it'd do you some good to only pitch to podcasts that you go, okay, well, they're speaking to new mums and I'm a coach who helps new mums with sleeping babies. So you would, pitch to that podcast. And something that's always really important to do, because I see a lot of this happening in Facebook groups especially, is people who host podcasts go, who wants to be a guest on my podcast? This is the title. And one of the key questions you should always ask, instead of just jumping on the bandwagon, and I see hundreds and hundreds of comments here, is like, yes, me, pick me, pick me, pick me. It's like, well, no, who is your audience on this podcast, so-and-so? Find out a bit of information, go and stalk them a bit before you go and pitch to them, because like I said, there's no point in pitching to a podcast that is going to not result in visibility to your ideal client for yourself, basically. Okay, the second reason why I love podcasts so much is that it's a longer form way of telling your story. So we all know by now that I love storytelling, and we as business owners are always telling stories, whether we're doing social posts, Insta stories, TikTok reels, emails, blogs, Facebook lives, whatever it is. These are like small bite-sized stories, so really small snippets of your story. But when you go on a podcast, you can go really deep into your story and answer questions like, tell us a bit about yourself, or how did you get to where you are today? What made you want to start your business? And you can really tell a deep and engaging story about what brought you to where you are, what makes you unique, your experiences and all these sorts of things. And it's a really powerful way to really connect with your ideal client. And storytelling sells. It really allows you to rapidly accelerate that know, like, trust factor that it takes your ideal client to buy from you. Okay, so it allows your ideal client to recognize you as one of their people, to be able to resonate with you on a much more deeper personal level than, for example, your website allows them to. They can recognize the similarities they have with you, the same morals or the same family unit, or that you like the same hobbies, for example. So being in podcasts allows you to really share in this way and let people know things about you that help build that trust, that connection, and that authority that will make them want to do business with you. Okay, and the third reason, and there are lots more reasons than this, is that on a podcast, you can unapologetically sell. Okay. Not that there's anything wrong with unapologetically selling everywhere else. It just seems to be a bit more socially acceptable within a podcast platform. So the podcast host most likely will ask you what you offer or what's next for you or where can people find you or something similar like that at the end of your interview or your chat together. And this is where you get to do your pitch. So if you've got a course release coming up, you would pitch it here. Don't just give them your website and be like, oh yeah, you can find me at tarrynreeves.com and move on from there. You would go, oh, you know, I've got this really cool writing course coming up. It's called Write It. We start in February and I'm looking for X, Y, and Z people. You can send me a message to find out more. Otherwise, head on over to tarrynreeves.com and check me out there. Okay, so always kind of have this distilled pitch happening within a podcast. And if the podcast host doesn't ask you, don't be scared to kind of weave your way in there and do a pitch at the end anyway. It's likely that they're not going to mind, and it is important that you get this done. Okay, not obviously really weird, like tack it on the end, but in a more flowy conversational way as it comes up. You know, thank you so much for having me. And if any of you are looking to connect with me further, please head on over to tarrynreeves.com. And for those of you looking to write, then I have this cool writing course coming up. It's called Write It, and we're starting on the 1st of February. I would love to see some of you in there. So send me a message if you want to find out more. Thank you so much for having me on the show. Okay, something like that. So the next thing is like, okay, well, how do we craft your message for a podcast? Now, this is essential in business to understand this foundational building block, because if you don't have this, if you don't have a deep understanding of your core message and what you're all about and what exactly you do and who you do it for, everything else in your business is going to be hard. Creating blogs, connecting with people, marketing, content creation, showing up, it's all going to be hard because you are confused. Okay, so make sure that you take the time to do this piece. And another thing that tends to come up when you speak is imposter syndrome. And we all suffer from this. Okay, this is something that is very, very normal and very, very prevalent. And this is a mindset piece now. You have to claim that space and really step into and embody that piece of you, because if you don't, everything else is going to fall flat. Okay, what do you want to be known for? Take a second to write this down. What do you want to be known for? You need to understand this so that you can craft your business messages and everything else from this space. Okay. Now, I'm not saying you can't be multi-passionate, because everybody knows that I am an extremely multi-passionate entrepreneur, but it's just how you package things into little sacred containers about what you're speaking about, when, with who, and crafting your messages that way. Okay. So what do you want to be known for? Some of the things that I've spoken about on podcasts are storytelling, visibility, the publishing process, vulnerability, mental illness, what else? Racism. What else have I spoken on? Marketing, business foundations. Yeah, those are just a few of the things. So as you can see, they are all quite different, but they all relate to my business in some way, shape, or form. So I'm not saying you can only talk about storytelling, for example, because you're a multifaceted being. All of these parts come into play, but how do they relate back to your business? And this is how we speak about it. So you can be strategic with your talks and how you are positioning yourself in the marketplace. I am the expert on X. I want to be known for X. Okay. Now, most hosts will ask you for a title and a tagline or a description of some sort that they will use to introduce you and to market the podcast episode. And with your title, and I struggled with this for a while, it's better to be clear than clever. Now, I love a good play on words, and I wanted to be like the marketing magician and all of these sorts of fun things, but it tends to confuse people if you try to be too clever with your title. So, you know, book coach and publisher, marketing nerd, intuitive business coach. What else have I got? Yeah, that's kind of my 3 titles that kind of come together to make me and all the different parts of my businesses stand together. And yours might be different, but you can see from each of those titles that it's very clear about what I do. And the next bit is your tagline. Your tagline is kind of like the subtitle to your movie that is you and your epic business. So it needs to be punchy, and it needs to be interesting to your ideal client, and by punchy I mean it needs to be short. Okay, we don't want like 3 paragraphs of tagline. That doesn't work. It needs to be like a slogan of sorts. So what I'd like you to do is to come up with at least 3 different kind of taglines that you can use with your podcast pitches and things like that. So for example, in 4 Eagles Publishing, I have writing a book is as easy as being you. I also have write it, publish it, market it. Okay. I have write a book without editing your soul. So those are some examples that really kind of highlight my unique selling point, my USP, and why I'm different from others, what it is that I can do, and those sorts of things. And they're really just a 1-sentence punchy thing. And if you're struggling to land on something, on 3 kind of titles, then go back through your content, look at your emails, look at your past talks, look at your posts, your lives, whatever it is, and identify the golden threads that tie together all of the things that you share about, that you're passionate about sharing about. That might be marketing, magnetic marketing. It might be being a woman doesn't have to be hard, leading from the heart, soul-led business, anything like that, okay? And identify what you're really knowledgeable at and claim it, okay? Because you are full of knowledge about something, and you are also full of joy and excited to talk about different topics. So maybe write those out and go, what do I really love talking about? What lights me up? What gets me excited? And how does this tie back into my business? And you need to then brand yourself and claim that space and become known as the expert in that space. Okay? Because if you don't claim it, nobody's going to do it for you. Okay, and now this will take some practice, this will take some work, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. We all start somewhere, right? And having this knowledge, like I said, of the foundational piece of your business, your marketing message is key to your business success. Because once you have clarity there, everything else becomes easier. Your content creation, showing up and speaking, just being energetically in your business. Once you understand your message and have such clarity around that, that's when you can show up in full. Okay, and so how do we actually pitch? How do we pitch to these little podcast people? Okay, so people want to know why you would be a good fit for their show. Okay, and there are a few different ways that you can do this, and I say start with what's available to you. Okay, and that's your existing community. So you can go into your personal social profiles, your Insta story, your LinkedIn profile, your Facebook business page, your whatever it is, Instagram, and ask people who in my community has a podcast and is accepting guests. Simple. Ask for what you want and receive. Ask for what you want and receive. Okay, who in my community has a podcast and is accepting guests? If you wanted to, you could also be more specific than that, and you can ask who is looking to interview a guest on X topic. So whatever your topic is, whether that's marketing, speaking skills, womb healing, Facebook ads, whatever it is. Okay. And I would suggest that you create something on your website or on a Google form or whatever it is, make it easy, let it be easy, is that you have a speaker page or a media page, and on it you have three to five titles or topics that you can speak on. You have links to past episodes. You have a little bit of background about you, your professional bio, and your headshot. Okay, let me see if I can share my screen. I'll share with you one. It needs to be updated, but I will share this with you. I think you can see that. Whoop, let's make this bigger. Okay, so if you go into my Tarryn Reeves website, oh, that's no good. Like I said, needs to be updated. There we go, that looks a bit better. You can see up the top here, it says media. And so it's got my headshot, it says inspirational keynote speaker and publishing expert. And then it's got my links to my socials in the header here. And it has my bio, okay. I'll come back to this button here, download my one sheet, some speaking topics, how becoming a best-selling author will expose your online business, how to write a book that grows your online business, make the universe the CEO of your business, the most untapped resource for expanding your business. You know, so I've chosen 6 topics here that I am giving people an example of. Now, this doesn't mean that I can't talk about other topics, but sometimes people like to have the examples from you. Okay, then I've got my as seen on section. Now, if you don't have one of these yet, don't worry, but basically this is all the podcasts and the magazines that I've been featured on, and it's just in a little slider here. So people, when they come and see this, they go, oh, she's actually done a lot of speaking before. But if you don't have this, please don't freak out, don't worry, you can add to it as you go. Okay, now if you've got links to past podcast episode, it would be a good idea to put them here. I haven't done that as of yet. Like I said, this page needs updating, but then there's also, you know, book Tarryn as a speaker. So this goes to my contact form, but they can also click here and download my one sheet. This also needs updating, I believe. It's on my to-do list. Let's see. So this is a PDF that's just housed on my website. Yeah, so this is a PDF download that they can have, and it's got my my headshot, my name, who I work with and what I do for them, kind of like my titles, the 4 most prominent, this needs to change, places that I've been featured in, my speaking topics, my bio, and then my contact information, all down here, my socials, my website, my email, my phone number, and my community. Okay, so some people like to receive a one sheet, some people like to receive a link, some people like to have both. So this is just something that you can create on Canva. Okay, super easy, she says. Right, so I would suggest creating something like this and getting really clear and having this all set up in preparation to really launch yourself into the next level of visibility. So some resources for you to go out and connect. So Facebook groups are a great one. So I've got a couple here. Let me just check the name. The podcast guest collaboration community, I believe is what it's called. Can't see my head now. All right. Yep, the podcast guest collaboration community. So just go into Facebook and search in there, people who have podcasts, you know, post in there, I'm looking for guests for X, Y, and Z, or you can go and post on there. Is anyone looking to interview somebody on X topic? Okay, we've also got some websites here, podit.net, just checking the spelling on that for you. Saying it can't be reached. Podit looks like it's gone somewhere. How bizarre. Okay, there is the podcast collaborative, which you can search for on the internet.com. Now, this is a paid one, but it's quite affordable and it allows you to have a profile on there. It has networking opportunities and all sorts of things like that, which is really cool. Now, I think gowildcast.com, is that one still running? Aha, gowildcast.com. Okay, that's another one where you can connect with people to be on their podcast, or if you've got a podcast yourself, then you can go and set up a profile on there, and it's very similar to the podcast collaborative. But yeah, it's a great little thing for you to check in and be involved with. And also go onto Apple Podcasts. If you listen to podcasts yourself, what are your favorite podcasts? Do not be scared to approach your favorite podcast host. What's the worst that they can say? No? Well, that's their loss, really. Let's think of it that way. Okay, so if you listen to a podcast and you have a favorite podcast and you're like, oh, I'd really love to be on that podcast, I'd be such a good fit, go and find their contact information. It might be listed on Apple Podcasts, it might be on their website, or just use a contact form on their website and get a hold of them and pitch to them, because the worst that they can say is no. Dream big and shoot for the stars. Okay, you've totally got this. I believe in you. And before you pitch, let's talk about some stuff that podcast hosts like to receive from pitches, because don't forget, they likely receive tons and tons of cold email pitching all day long to be on their show. Okay, we want you to stand out. So make sure that you've at least listened to some of their podcast episodes before, so that you can get the vibe, get who they are as a person and as a host, what they like talking about, the kinds of questions that they ask. Do some digging, okay? And share why you love their show. So make sure, like I say, you listen to a few episodes and that you can relate to this in your pitch email or your application form, however they want you to pitch. It could be a button that says, apply here and you fill out a form, or it could be click here and contact us and you send them an email. Either way, make sure that you can say, I love the way that you tie spirituality into business with every conversation, or I really love the episode where you spoke to X, Y, and Z about X, Y, and Z. I particularly love the line, da, 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 da. Okay, to show that you've actually listened to their podcast and that you're really enjoying it. Okay, so, just give their ego a little bit of a rub, a little bit of a hug. Obviously, be genuine about it. You don't want to be on podcasts where you just don't like the person. It's just not worth it, right? And always lead with your value. So what can you provide to their audience? That's the most important thing. Why would you, coming on their show to speak about X topic, be of value to their audience? So you would be like, I'd love to be a guest on your show. I believe I can provide real value, and I would love to talk on the topic of X, Y, and Z. I know that your audience is X, Y, and Z, and I believe that they can get real value from what I have to say, or something like that. Okay. And also what they love is to know that you are going to share this with your community. Like I said, we want at the very beginning, we want this to be a win-win situation. Okay. It's not just, oh, hey, I want to be on your show so that I can pitch my stuff. How are you going to get their show out to a broader audience? How are you going to get the message out to a broader audience? And just say, I would love to share this show with my community. And if you've got a big following, great, add that in there. I have so many followers on Instagram or whatever it is. If not, that's totally okay to leave that part out. But just say, I'd love to share the show with my community. I'll send an email, I'll do an Insta story, etc., etc., etc. Okay. And the last thing is to make it easy for the host. Okay. Make it easy for the host. I would suggest, if you're not going to put everything on one link on your website, then to have a Google Drive that has a variety of headshots in it, that has a variety of your past podcast episodes. If you have any, a copy of your third person bio, and anything else that they require from you, if there's something specific in that folder, so that you can just send them a link and they can get everything they need in one place. Okay, make it easy. And if they've asked you to fill out a form, then fill in every piece. Don't leave out the topic title, and don't say, I'll come back to you later with my pitch freebie thing, because they're not going to chase you. Okay, it's not worth their time to chase you. They're receiving too many pitches. So make sure you've got all of your ducks in a row and fill out every single piece on that application form so that they can go, yep, this lady's organized, she's ready to go, or this man is organized and he's ready to go. Then they can walk you through that process and book you in for a time slot to speak sooner rather than later, instead of if they see something that's half done, they're just going to move it to the archive file. Okay. Oh, something else that you may wish to include is possible questions. Okay, so some hosts will ask you, what sorts of questions would you like me to ask you on the show? Okay, so think of some questions that they could ask you that would really position you in a beautiful strategic light in front of your ideal client. Okay, now this might be, tell us why you do what you do. Okay, why are you so passionate about women's health? Why are you so passionate about teaching others to create amazing course content? Whatever it is that you do, why are you so passionate about running Facebook ads or teaching about Facebook ads? Whatever your value is, your value proposition, your niche, whatever you want to call it, make sure that your questions are tailored to that. Now, some of them will not ask you what questions you want to be asked, and they will just ask you questions. So this is why it's important to go back through a couple of past episodes, because they usually ask the same types of questions to their audience all the time. Like, for example, one of the podcasts I love is called A Life of Greatness by Sarah. Oh my gosh, can't believe I forgot her name. Somebody, A Life of Greatness by Sarah someone or other. And a question that she always asks at the end, what is a life of greatness to you? Right? So if I was to pitch to her show, I would already have that answer ready and prepared. Okay. So that's just something to think about. And another thing I would like to address is the fear of public speaking. Okay. This is completely normal and something that shows up for a lot of us. I've spoken so many times and I still get nervous, and that's totally okay. It's a practice. And that is the key to moving through it. It's just practice, practice, practice. So if you feel that you need to practice with somebody before going on a podcast interview, then grab your partner, grab your best friend, get them to ask you some questions, practice in front of the mirror, do a couple of live videos, and just practice telling a bit about yourself. Go through past shows, you know, that they have done, and get those questions, give them to your partner and say, ask me these, and practice responding. Okay. And practice your offer, your pitch at the end. So let's say you've got a course coming up, practice how you would say that at the end of a podcast interview in a really free-flowing style conversation. Now, you may have to improvise on the actual show, but at least you would have a skeleton structure to work from. Okay. Also practice letting people know how they can find you, because this is something like we're not used to really going, oh, you can find me at tarrynreeves.com. You know, that's not something that usually comes up in normal conversation. So just practice how that flows for you out of the tongue. Yeah. And don't forget that this doesn't stop when you finish the podcast. Okay, you can really leverage your speaking opportunities on these podcasts. Share it everywhere, absolutely everywhere, because what it does is it shows your audience that you know your stuff. It lets them know that you're a certain level in your business and that you're willing to be seen on bigger stages. So if you do a podcast episode, you can get that cut up into little clips. You can do Instagram posts, you can do LinkedIn posts, you can do an article out of it. You can do your own podcast if you've got your own podcast show out of whatever it is that you spoke about, obviously leaving out the hosts part of it. You can do an email, you can do stories, you can do reels, you can do YouTube videos, whatever it is. Leverage it as much as humanly possible, because that is where the real magic is. Expand, expand, expand. One piece of content made into many. So let it be easy, let it flow, and start pitching to those podcasts, because your message is just waiting to be heard by somebody out there. So I can't wait to see what you do with this. If you've got any questions, please let me know. And yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing all of your podcast episodes really, really soon. Thank you.